Hello everyone and welcome to this first match of Mock Premier League. So what is actually this Mock Premier League? In this league, we'll solve series of mock tests which will prepare us for an exam. So in this Mock Premier League, we'll solve series of mock tests for CMAT and MHCET which will prepare you for CMAT 2021 and MHCET 2021. And to start up with this, in our first match, we write the past paper, the actual paper of CMAT 2020. We'll analyze that paper and we'll develop a strategy for ourselves to attempt CMAT 2021 paper. So in this first match of Mock Premier League, we'll attempt and analyze CMAT 2020 actual paper as we analyze cricket. So we'll use an analogy of cricket and understand our strategy for the exam. So if CMAT is a cricket match, to play long innings, you need to pick up the right balls to hit and defend. So you cannot be a Sehwag here. Okay, you cannot hit every ball for a 6. Similarly, you cannot attempt all the questions similarly, because the difficulty level of different question is different and you need to pick up the easy question to hit a 6 or a 4, which means you need to pick up the easy balls to hit a 6. And you need to defend well on difficult questions. So if the question is difficult, you need to be defensive there. Okay, you cannot hit this ball for a 6. So how to identify which are easy questions, moderate questions, difficult question, and questions not to be attempted, questions that are very difficult, because there is negative marking in the exam as well. So if CMAT is a cricket match, to play long innings, you need to pick up the right balls to hit and defend. So to score maximum in the exam, you need to pick up right questions to attempt and leave. Okay, you just cannot hit every ball for a 6 or a 4. Similarly, you cannot just go ahead and attempt every question with the same speed, because the difficulty level of the question is different. Okay, you cannot hit a Yorker for a 6, right? So similarly, if there is a big puzzle, you just cannot go ahead and give your 100% time to it and solve it, because it's difficult puzzle. Okay, it's better to go on to the easy question first and then on to the difficult. So how will we solve this paper? We'll pick up the question. So we'll take CMAT 2020 actual paper, we'll take one section and we'll see which are the questions on which I can hit a 6, which means easy questions, which are the questions on which I can hit a 4, which means moderate questions, which are the question on which I will have to be defensive, which are difficult question, and which are the question which I should not attempt at all because they will give me negative marking, so which are my wicket questions. Once you identify this, your strategy for the exam, your attempt for the exam, your energy will be channelized in the right direction. You will be able to get maximum output from your skills. Okay, that's what we are trying to do in this Mock Premier League. So the language of the league will be, playing the league will develop us to pick up right questions in the exam. Correct. That is the only reason why we are comparing it with cricket. So we'll be picking up easy questions on which we can hit a 6, moderate questions on which we can hit a 4, and then defensive questions. Okay, that's how we will see the Mock Premier League. So tune into this and develop a right strategy for your CMAT 2021. If you are wondering why are we studying in this way, because at Storyboard we play and learn. So play Mock Premier League and learn how to attempt the actual exam paper. So even before we start with our first match with CMAT, where we solve CMAT 2020 actual paper, let us first know the rules of the game. So even before we start with the match, let us understand the rules of the game. Rules of the game means instruction for the exam. So what is the duration of the exam? All of us know it is for 180 minutes. And there are 4 sections in the exam. Quants, data interpretation as one section, 25 questions. Logical reasoning, one section, 25 questions. Verbal ability, 25 questions, and GK, 25 questions. So total number of questions in the exam, 100, and the time is 180 minutes. So your CMAT is actually a test match. So if I have to compare this with MHCET is asking you 200 questions and giving you 150 minutes. Whereas CMAT is asking you 100 questions and giving you 180 minutes, which means you almost have 2 minutes per question to solve. And in your MHCET you have around 45 to 50 seconds to solve one question. So you need to have speed when you are solving MHCET paper. So you need to be a Sanju Samson. you need to play a T20 there. Okay, wickets doesn't matter there because there is no negative marking in CET. So just keep on attempting it, keep on hitting every ball for a 6 or a 4, doesn't matter. Okay, but you cannot do this in a test match. You have to be a Cheteshwar Pujara while you are writing your CMAT because it's actually a test match. You cannot come up with a wrong attempt of a question here because there is negative marking. So you have a fear of losing wicket here. So you have to have a strong defense when you are writing a CMAT paper. Okay, so that's what will develop a strategy. So if it is a test match, right, which ball to hit, which ball to defend, and which ball are wicket ball which you have to leave. Okay, so that's what is a strategy that will develop it here. And you all know what is the marks for the exam. 4 plus 4 is what you get for every correct answer and -1 for every incorrect answer. Okay, as I said, it's a test match. You have to have your strong defense here. Okay, if you don't have that, you will be getting negative marking here. So that's how we'll develop our strategy for this. Okay, so let's start now. Let's start with the match. The first section that we'll pick up is quantitative techniques and data interpretation. Okay, we'll take 25 questions from this section and we'll identify out of this 25 which questions can you hit 6. Okay, which are easy questions. On which questions can you hit a 4, moderate questions. On which questions you have to be defensive, difficult question, and which questions you have to leave it as soon as you see them because there is a scope of getting a negative marking here. So on which question can you lose your wicket? Okay, so identifying and picking up the right question to solve is what we are going to do in this match. Okay, so without wasting any time, let's start with our first section of quants and data interpretation. So there we go, we play our first ball, which means we solve our first question here. The first question that we get in quants section is from permutation and combination. Okay, so let's see how do you attempt this question. So this is clearly a sixer for me. I'm sure that it's clearly a sixer for me because it's an easy question. On this ball, I have to hit a 6 because it's a straight question. In how many ways a committee of 5 men and 6 women be formed from 8 men and 10 women? Clear, a question of combination. So from 8 men, you are supposed to select how many men? 5 men. From 8 men, 5 men could be selected in 8C 5 ways. And you need to select 6 women from 10 women. From 10 women, 6 women could be selected in 10C 6 ways. Problem is over. Now we just have to calculate and reach on to the answer. That's why it's my sixer. Okay, you cannot miss this full toss. It's a full toss ball there. So you have to hit this ball for a 6. You need to solve this question easily and quickly. So let's solve this now. 8C5 could be written as 8C3. I'm making the calculation look easy. 10C6 could be written as 10C4. Okay, I hope you know that 8C5 is equals to what? 8C3. Okay, and how do you get this? This is 8, so write here 8. 8 minus 5, whatever you get the number, write it here. Okay, then you can solve it by the formula of combination. But again, I have a shortcut for this as well. I don't solve it by formula. If you want to know more about this shortcut, look at our basics classics and you will understand. So since this is 8C3, I'll write it here as what? I'll go 3. 8 into 7 into 6. And this will be 3. So 3 factorial. 3 into 2 into 1. Since this is 10C4, I'll write it 4 times. I'll go back 4 times. So 10 into 9 into 8 into 7. Okay, gone back by 4. Since this is 4, just write a 4 factorial. 4 factorial is nothing but 4 into 3 into 2 into 1. And done. Let's cut it and reach to our answer. So 6 gets cancelled. Then what? I get 2 1s are, 2 4s are 8, 4 gets cancelled, 3 1s are, 3 3s are 9. So what am I left with? 8 7s are, I'm left with here 56. 56 into what? 10 into 3 is 30 into 7. It's 210. So 210 into 56 is my answer. I know the answer will be here option number D. If you are wondering how without even calculating I know that, I know it. See, if I multiply this, the unit digit will be 0 because of this. 10th digit I'll get because of the multiplication of this and then this. So 1 into 6 will be what? 6. So I need to have a 10th digit which is 6. So there's only one option which is having this. Okay, in case you just want to solve it, let's go ahead to solve this. No need to do all this. Okay, make sure you know the shortcut. In case you want to solve this, 1 6 is 6, 1 into 5, 2 into 6 12, 2 into 5 10, 11. So this comes out to be 6 7 1176. Okay, as I rightly said, 117. I guessed this and I got the answer. So this was a 6er question, okay, because there was no thinking for it at all. You just need to know the formula, calculation, and you will reach to the answer. So we play our second ball. We come on to the second question in quant section. Again, this is from mensuration, where we study 2D and 3D figures. So what is being asked here? What is the farthest distance between the 2 points on a cylinder of height 8 and radius 8? So I am being given a cylinder and I am being given the height of the cylinder is given to me as 8. So I will say this height is given to me as 8 and the radius is given to me as 8 as well. So this, if I say this is the center, so this distance is equal to 8. And I am being asked what is the farthest distance between the 2 points on the cylinder. So what is the farthest distance between any 2 points? Let's check it. If I take a point here, okay, will this be the farthest distance, this dotted black line? Okay, or will this dotted blue line be the farthest distance? Clearly, this dotted blue line will be the farthest distance here. Okay, and I am supposed to find it out that. If you can check it here, this is nothing but hypotenuse. So this angle here is 90. Okay, we know that. And this two sides are given to me. This side length is equals to 8. And this side length is also equal to 8. So I'll apply what? Pythagoras theorem. Let the hypotenuse be equal to x. So I'll write it here. Apply the Pythagoras theorem. X square is equals to what? 8 square is 64 plus again 8 square is 64. Or you can write this as what? 8 square plus 8 square. And you can come up with this and say that this is equals to 2 into 8 square. Okay, that is equals to x square. I need to find out x to take the square root of this. So x is equals to what? Square root of 8 square is nothing but 8 and 2 square root is nothing but square root of 2. Okay, and that's your final answer now. 8 square root of 2. That is the option number C here. So the farthest distance between the 2 points on the cylinder is this. Okay, what will I term this question to be as? I'll again say this to be as a 6er. Okay, because it was a pretty straightforward question. You just have to apply the Pythagoras theorem and reach on to the answer. You can think of this as a 4 as well. When will this become 4? When you have to think little bit that what is the farthest distance between the 2 points. Okay, if you don't know this, then it will be a 4. Okay, where you have to think and reach to the answer. But for me it was a 6er because it was quite straight. I had to just apply the Pythagoras theorem and reach to the answer. If I know the concept, what is the farthest point, it will be easy for me to solve this question. So the next question that I get here, the third ball that I play, is from numbers. So you can see this question is from the chapter numbers. Okay, factors is the topic from where it is being taken. So what is the question saying now? Find the smallest number by which 2400 should be divided to make it a perfect cube. So 2400, this looks quite simple. How do you make any number to be a perfect cube? What is the property of a perfect cube? Let's understand. 27 is a perfect cube, 8 is a perfect cube, 216 is a perfect cube. So how can I write 27 as 3 cube? Okay, how can I write 8 as 2 cube? How can I write 216 as 6 cube? Or I can further split this and write this as 2 cube into 3 cube. Okay, what did we learn from this? Perfect cube always has a power in the multiples of 3. So it will be 3, 6, 9. That is how the powers will be of a perfect cube. Which means I have to make 2400 to be in the powers of 3. Again, how can I do that? So let's first write it here. 2400. How will I write it in terms of factors, which is in terms of prime numbers? So one way to solve this is you can just factorize this here, keep it here and say 2 1s are 12s are 24, and you can keep on going like this to reach to the answer. Okay, 2 600, then 2 into 300, then this is 2 into 150. No need to do like that, I'm just telling you the one way to do this. So if you keep going like this till you get 1, you will get the factors of this. Okay, but I want a shortcut here. So what will I say? This is 100, so I'll write 25 into 4 into 8. This is what? 8 into 3, correct. So that's what I get. 24 is being written as 8 into 3, and this 0 0 is written as 25 into 400. What will I do now? I'll take all the powers on one side. So this can be written as what? 5 power 2. Okay, this is what I write for this. This 4 could be written as 2 power 2. Okay, and I can write this 8 as again 2 power 3. Okay, and the last one 3, I'll keep it like that only, 3 power 1. So that's what I am getting at. 2400 is actually this. The question is asking me find the smallest number by which 2400 should be divided to make it a perfect cube. So I need to divide 2400 by some number to get it a perfect cube, which means I need the powers of 2400 to be 3. Okay, what number will I divide 2400 by such that this powers will become in the multiples of 3, but I want the smallest number. Okay, so what will you do to get the powers to be 3? So I can make this 2 to be as 3, right? This is the only 3 that I can see it here, 2 power 3. So what will I say? Okay, divide this by 3 raised to 1, because then this and this will cancel. Divide this by 5 raised to 2, because then this and this will get cancelled, and divide it by this into this 2 raised to 2, because then this and this will get cancelled. So what will happen if this get cancelled? Eventually, if you divide it by this number, you will get this as the answer, which is nothing but a perfect cube. Okay, 8. So you will divide it by this number. Now which is this number? Let's just check it. Which is this number? 5 square, 25 into 400 into 3, 300. Correct. That's your answer. So 300 is your answer. And that's quite logic as well. 2400 will only be divided by 300. Then only you will get an 8, and that is the smallest number. Okay, check it with any other number. If you divide it by 220, are you getting a perfect cube? Let's check it. No, you're not. Okay, directly go from option. If you don't want to see the concept, that's okay. Directly go from option. Divide this by 385. Are you getting a perfect cube? No. Okay, divide this by 260 and just keep on checking it like that. With 300 you will get the answer. Okay, and you can check it like this as well. So you can go from the option and do a cross check. So since this was a very easy question, I will give it a 6er, because you should have solved this by option as well. So even if you don't know the concept of factors, that's okay. I would have just picked up the option and put it here and got the answer. Okay, so this is again a 6er for me. I cannot miss this full toss in exam. Let's come and face the next ball for the match. This is next question, the fourth question that we are solving, and this is from the chapter set theory. Okay, now what is the question saying here? In a certain town, 40% of the people have brown hair. So people who have brown hair are 40%. 30% of the people have brown eyes. So people who have brown eyes are 30%. And 12% have both. So 12% have both brown hairs as well as brown eyes. How many people in the town have neither brown hair nor brown eyes? Okay, so this is a straight question from set theory. According to me, it's again a 6er, because if you have done the concept of set theory, this should be very easy. Okay, now let's understand this. So what is being given here? Let this circle represent people who have brown hair, black circle here. And let's make another circle here, say red circle representing people who have brown eyes. Now I'll put the color here. This blue color represents people who have only brown hair. So let this be equal to A. This A is equals to people who have only brown hair. That is one quality, that is brown hair. Okay, that's what I write it here. Then let us take one more color here. Say I put it here as red. This red represents, let it be B, people who have only brown eyes. Only one trait, that is brown eyes. So that's what this is representing. And if I take the intersection of the both, this green part, and I call it to be as C, this C represents people who have both the traits, which means they have brown hairs as well as brown eyes. Okay, that's what you write it here. This is the basics of set theory that you are supposed to know. So if I ask you how many people have brown hairs or brown eyes, okay, that will be equal to A plus B. So only brown hair, which means one quality of brown hair is that are the number of people are A. One quality of brown eyes is number of people are B. Okay, and both is given to be as C. So let's read the question now. Now what is this 40 equal to? 40% of the people have brown hair. So did they give me A or did they give me A plus C? Okay, they gave me A plus C is equals to 40 because they told me 40% of the people have brown hair. They did not tell me only brown hair. If they would have told me only brown hair, then I would have said okay, A is equals to 30, but that is not the case. Okay, the case here is A plus C because they are telling me brown hair. So people who have only brown hair and people who have both, A plus C. Similarly, they told me 30% of the people have brown eyes. So this is total brown eyes, not only brown eyes. So A, what is this? Sorry, B plus C. So B plus C is equals to 30. These are the two equations that I get, and total is obviously 100%. So 40 is here, 30 is here. And 12% have both. So this is quite simple. If 12% have both, which means 12 have both. So C is equals to 12. So now the question is solved. That's why it's a sixer. If C is equals to 12, now let's solve it. If C is equals to 12, A plus C is equals to 40. So A is equals to what? 28. So people who have only brown hair, out of 100, 28 people have only brown hair, 12 people have both. And if I now compare this, B plus C is 30. So if C is equals to 12, this becomes equal to 18. 18 people have only brown eyes. Now, if I ask you a question, how many people have at least one feature? Which means at least one means what? Minimum of one feature. So minimum of one feature is what? A plus B, one feature, exactly one feature. But you said at least one, right? So minimum one, maximum can be anything. So minimum one, so 1 is A plus B, but maximum can be anything. So what about 2 then? How many people have 2 features? C. Okay, so what do I understand from this? How many are having at least one feature? A plus B plus C. Okay, that is having people having at least one feature. Question is asking me what? People having neither brown hair or brown eyes. So that is means people having neither of the feature. So add all three of them. 28 plus 12 is 40 plus 18. 40 plus 18 is nothing but 58. 58% of the people out of 100%, 58% have at least one feature. At least one feature means minimum one. So how many have exactly one? A plus B, sorry. And how many have exactly 2? Because you are telling me minimum 1. So how many have at least 1? A plus B plus C. So how many have none feature? 58% is having at least 1. So 100 minus 58, 42% is having neither brown hair nor brown eyes. Okay, that's how you deal with it. So why am I calling it to be sixer? Because I'll not even draw all this diagram in the exam. Okay, this is for your understanding. So I'll see this. Okay, this is 40. This is 12. So if this is 12, which means this part becomes 28, this part becomes 12, and this part will be 18. I'll add all the 3 in the exam. I'll say 58%. 100 minus 58, answer is 42. So I'll not even draw all this thing in the diagram. Okay, that's why it's a sixer for me. I'll solve this like in 15 seconds in the exam. That's how simple it is. Okay, I did all this for your better understanding. So in case you are wondering how is this a sixer, because it's a simple question. So let's come on and play our fifth ball here. The fifth question in quant section. Now what is the question saying here? A company publishes to sell its customer that a certain compound interest rate, a sum of money deposited by anyone, will become 8 times in 3 years. Okay, so someone has deposited the money and the company is saying it will become 8 times in 3 years. And the question is asking me if the same amount is deposited at the same compound interest, okay, then how many years will it become 16 times? So same amount is being deposited for same compound interest, then for how many years it will become 16 times. So let's understand this. Okay, this is from the chapter of simple interest and compound interest, and what is it saying now? It's not a plain problem. Okay, so surely it is not my sixer. Why? Because I cannot use a formula and just solve it. I will have to use some concept here. So probably it's a 4 for me. Okay, on this ball I can hit a 4 because it will require a little bit of thinking. It's not a full toss just to come and hit it. So you cannot just use a formula and reach on to the answer, right? As you can realize by reading this. So how do we solve this now? How do we hit the 4 on this ball? So 8 times in 3 years, which means in 3 years the amount becomes 8 times. So if it was x year, okay, initially after 3 years it becomes 8x. Okay, that's what I am understanding it here now. If the same amount is deposited at the same compound interest, then in how many years will it become 16 times? Okay, so same amount means the x only amount is being deposited. Okay, and in how many years will it become 16x? Okay, so this blue part is something that I'm supposed to find it out, and how many years will this happen? So let's understand this logic here. Okay, if I'm saying you that the amount becomes 4 times, okay, in 2 years. In 2 years the amount becomes 4 times. Okay, so what can you say this? 4 raised to 1 by 2. Okay, 4 raised to 1 by 2 will be equal to what? That will be equal to nothing but 2 only. Square root of 4, which is nothing but 2 only. So the amount became 4 times in 2 years. That's why I write it in this way. If the amount becomes 8 times in then what? 4 years. So what did I do it here? I just multiplied this entire thing by 2. So amount becomes 4 times in 2 years, multiplied by 2, it will become 8 times in 4 years. Okay, so what can I write for this as well? Let's write it here, this blue part, 8. 8 raised to 1 by 4. Okay, what is that equal to now? That is equals to 2 raised to 4. 8 could be written as 2 raised to 4 raised to 1 by 4. So 4 gets cancelled. This is nothing but equal to 2 only. And you can check this 2 and this 2 are same. So what did I get from here? This is nothing but times. How many times it becomes in how many years? So what do you write it here? Times raised to 1 upon years. For this and this has to be same. Okay, that's the property of compound interest. If you keep the amount deposited to be same and the compound interest rate is same, this will always happen. So this is the same logic that I'll apply it here. I am saying that now let's take this. The blue part is here 3. The amount will become, this is now, years is nothing but 3 year. Okay, in 3 years the amount becomes 8x. So the amount becomes 8 times. 8 times in 3 years. Okay, and the question is asking me the amount will become 16 times in how many years? Okay, that's what is the question that is asking me. So I'll use the same logic. What did I do here? Blue raised to this part. So I'll write here 8 raised to what? 1 by 3. Okay, that will be equal to what then? 16 raised to what? 1 by x. As I did it here. As you can check it. I did it here and both of this has to be same. So this 2 has to be same. So I know what now? 8 raised to 1 by 3 is equals to 16 raised to 1 by x, and that will give me the final value of x, which will solve my problem. So let's just solve this now. This could be written as 2 raised to 3. Okay, so this is 2 raised to 3 raised to 1 by 3. So this gets cancelled and I eventually get here 2 from here, and this could be written as 2 raised to 4 is 16. So 2 raised to 4 by x this will become. Okay, because this 4 will be multiplied and this will become 4 by x. This gets cancelled. Okay, so what will I get it? 2 raised to 1 is equals to 2 raised to 4 by x. Again, that gives me my final answer. So 1 is equals to 4 by x. So x is equals to 4, and that's your answer. 4 years, option number A. In how many times will it becomes 16 times? In 4 years. Okay, that's how you reach to the answer. So this will be a 4 for me. Okay, as I said at the start of the question, it's not a plain formula based question where you will use the formula and reach to the answer. But you don't have to be defensive here as well, because it is not involving a lot of calculation. Is it complicated? No, it involves understanding a basic concept of compound interest. Okay, if you know that, you will reach on to the answer. Okay, that's why it's a 4 for me, because it's not a straight question or a full toss to hit it for a 6. You have to think a little bit here. Play our next ball here. 6th ball, the 6th question that we solve in cont section. This question is from numbers. Okay, and as soon as I read this, I know it's clearly a 6er because it's a formula based question. The sum of two numbers is 135, their HCF is 9. how many such pairs of numbers can be formed. Okay, so if you had done the basics class which we had uploaded on our YouTube channel of Storyboard for CMAT 2021, you can see the crash course for that, 99 percentile in 99 days. In this numbers chapter we have explained this quite clearly, that how to use this formula. So what is a formula? If HCF of two numbers is given to me as x, then I can write one number as x into a and another number as x into b, such that a and b are always what? We had learned it there, a and b are always co-prime to each other. Okay, and what is co-prime? The two numbers whose HCF, highest common factor, is 1. Okay, we had spent good 40 minutes just to study this property of LCM and HCF. So if you had done that, this is a 6er for you. Okay, because you just have to apply this property and reach on to the answer. So I should be very happy. It's a full toss for me in the exam. So let's start. What is being given to me here? HCF of two numbers is given to me as 9. So this x is given to me as 9. I can write one number as now 9 into a and another number as 9 into b. Right? Just in the place of x, I am writing it as 9, applying the property. So one number becomes 9a and another number becomes 9b. Okay, I am being given sum of two numbers is 135. So 9a, let's write the a like this, plus 9b is equals to what? Sum of two numbers is equals to 135, and this is given to me in the question. So what does this tells me? I'll take out 9 as common from here. So what am I left here? A plus b is what I'll be left here, and this is equals to what? 135. So a plus b is equals to what then? Just take the 9 there. A plus b is equals to 135 divided by 9. So 9 ones are 9, 9 5s are 45. 15. Sum of two numbers a plus b is equals to 15. But what do I know about a and b? A and b has to be co-prime to each other. So how can I write the sum of two numbers as 15 such that the two numbers are co-prime to each other? So let's write 1 and then 14. Are 1 and 14 co-prime to each other? Yes, their highest common factor is 1. Okay, that's why they are co-prime. What else? I can write 2 and then 13. Yes, they are also co-prime. Their highest common factor is 1. So this can be the possible. Can I write 3 and then 12? No, because they are not co-prime to each other. Sum is 15, but they are not co-prime. Their highest common factor is 3. The highest common factor of 3 and then 12 is 3. I want the HCF to be 1. So this is not the pair of number that I can form. I can till now form two pair of number, in which one a is 1, b is 14. Okay, and in another one a is 2, b is 13. In case you want to know the number, just substitute it here. 9 into 1, 9, and 9 into 14. Okay, what is 14 into 9? Just check it. 36, 126. Okay, that's how you can form. So the two numbers here are 9 and then 126, if you take this as a case. If you take the second case, just put a as 2 and b as 13. So if I put a as 2, this becomes 18, 9 into 2, 18, and this becomes 13 into 9, okay, which is equals to what? 13 into 9. Okay, so let's do it here, 117. So this becomes my two numbers, 18 and 117, if I take this as it. So till now I have two pairs of number. Okay, I will not be doing all this in the exam. This is for your understanding. I am solving so much. Let's take another pair that you can form. Not with 3, can you form it with 4? 4 and then 11, correct. They are also co-prime to each other. So this will give me another pair. What else? Can I write a 5 and then 10? No, their HCF is not 1. 6 and then 9? No, their HCF is not 1. 7 and what? 7 and then 8, correct. 7 and then 8 I can write it. Their HCF is 1. Their HCF is also 1. So 4 I am getting it. After 7 it will be 8 and it will be repeat. After that it will be 9 and then repeat. So that's it. These are the 4 pairs of numbers that I can form. Okay, in one a will be 1 and b will be 14. So these are your two numbers. In another one a will be 2 and b will be 14. So these are your two numbers. Now put a as 4 and b as 11. What will it be? 9 4s are 36, 9 11s are 99. These two numbers, if you take this one and substitute this, 9 7s are 63 and 9 8s are 72. These two numbers, if you are thinking at this. So how many pairs of numbers you can form? 4. Okay, why is this a 6er for me? Because it is just an application of property. I'll come to know a plus b is 14 and I just have to get this 4 pairs. I'll not find out this number. Okay, I just have to get A and B are co-prime. So how many such numbers I can form their sum is 15 and both the numbers are co-prime to each other, which means that HCF is 1, only 4 pairs. So I'll just mark here, like in 30 seconds I'll mark it, the answer is 4. Okay, so you don't have to think here anything. If you had done the chapter, if you had done the basics, even if you have seen our YouTube classes for CMAT 2021, you should get such all the 6er problems. So we play our next ball number 7, question number 7. So what does this question say? This is about simplifying the numbers. So this is clearly a 6er for me, because I just have to simplify and reach on to the answer. So let's get answer in the next 30 seconds. 0.3 into 0.3. 3 into 3 is nothing but 9, but there are 2 decimal points here, so it will be 0.09 for this part. Let's check this part. It is same, 0.3 into 0.3. This will be again equal to 0.09. Now minus of what? 6 into 3 is what? 18. But there are 3 decimal points here, 2 here and 1 here. So after 3 decimal points, after 3 numbers, I'll put a decimal point here, 0.01 here. Okay, that's what I'll write it here. Divided by what? 0.54. Just simplify this and reach on to the answer. So 9 plus 9 is nothing but 18. So this becomes 0.180 minus 0.018 divided by 0.54. So this turns out to be 180 minus 18 is nothing but 162. So 0.162 divided by 0.54. So if I just further simplify this, this becomes 162 upon 54. Okay, now let's just cancel this and reach on to our answer. Will this be cancelled by 9? Yes, this is 540. Okay, 3 decimal points, multiplying numerator and denominator by 1000. You can think it like that as well. So this becomes 162 and this becomes 540. Just cancel this. 9 6 are 54, 60. 9 1s are 72, 9 8s are 72, 6 3s are 18, 6 10s are 60. 3 by 10 is nothing but 0.3. So if we simplify this, the answer is 0.3. Option number B that I'll mark for this. Okay, so clearly a full toss which should be hit for a 6. Come and play ball number 8. We are solving question number 8, quantitative aptitude section. So what does this question say? The LCM and HCF of two numbers is 84 and 21 respectively. So LCM and HCF is given to me as 84 and 21. The ratio of two numbers is 1:4. Then the larger among the two number is. I can solve this by option, but I have a method here as well, and this is clearly again a 6er for me. If you are wondering why, because this is based on property. Okay, just see the basics class that we have for CMAT 2021 for number system, in which we have explained the property of LCM and HCF. Okay, a good 2-hour lecture only on these properties of LCM and HCF. So let's apply this. If the ratio of two numbers is 1:4, so I can say if the ratio is 1:4, what are the two numbers? You don't know, right? But there is something that we have multiplied this ratio with. So this into x, this into x. There is some multiple, right? So it could be, say, if x is 1, the two numbers are 1 and 4. If x is 2, the two numbers are 2 and 8. If x is 3, the two numbers are 3 and 12. So there is something that is being multiplied to both this ratio to get to the number, right? So I get, after this, let the two numbers be x and then 4x. Okay, so from the ratio I get the value. So this was the ratio, this is the value. What are the two numbers depending upon what the value of x is. What am I being given here now? LCM and HCF of two numbers is this. We had learned this in a property. Okay, what is that property? I'll put it here. Product of two numbers. Product of two numbers is equals to LCM of two numbers into HCF of two numbers. This is what we have studied in the property. So our two numbers are here now, x and then 4x. So x into 4x, product of two numbers, is equals to LCM of two numbers, which is nothing but 84, that is given here, into HCF of two numbers, that is nothing but 21, and done. Just get the value of x and the problem is solved. So how will I solve? This is, let's cut this, 4 1s are 4 2s are 8, 21. 21 into 21, 441. But no need to do that. X square is equals to what now? 21 square. So x is equals to what? X is equals to 21, and that's your answer. But that's not what they're asking. What are they asking? The larger among the two number is. So if x is 21, one number becomes 21 into 4, 84, and another number becomes 21. So the larger among the two number is what? 84. So these were the two numbers, 21 and 84, such that their LCM, as you can see it here, least common multiple is 84. 21 into 4 and 84 into 1 will give you this, and their HCF, highest common factor, is 21 into 1 and 21 into 4. Okay, that's how you get the two numbers. So a very simple problem. If you know the properties, this was again a full toss. That now we play our ball number 9, question number 9 for quantitative aptitude section. Let's see what is this question saying. So the ratio of x is to y is given to me, and the value of 3x plus 2y divided by 2x plus 5y is being asked to me. Okay, clearly a full toss, for which I'll hit a long 6. Okay, because this is a very simple problem. It cannot get simpler than this. So let's see this. X is to y is 2 is to 3, right? So let x be equal to 2 and let y be equal to 3, and that's how you solve it. So in this, they are asking you the value of 3x plus 2y. So put x is equals to 2 and put y is equals to 3, and your problem is solved. So here also put x is equals to 2 and y is equals to 3. Now get to the answer. 3 into 2, 6. 2 into 3, 6. 6 plus 6, this becomes equal to 12. That is your numerator. So I know either A or D is the answer. Okay, let's see the next part. 2 into 2, 4. Plus 5 into 3, 15. So 15 plus 4, this becomes 19. 12 divided by 19, option number D. Okay, as I said, there's a full toss for which you should hit a long 6. Let's come and play ball number 10, question number 10 for quantitative aptitude section. So what is this question saying now? Let's hear this out. Work done by a man, woman and a child are in the ratio of 3:2:1. So this is clearly a problem from time and work. The efficiencies of men, women and child are given as 3:2:1. Okay, so if a man can put 3 bricks in a day, woman can put 2 bricks, and the child can put 1 brick in a day. Okay, that is the meaning of this efficiency. But this is a ratio, so it can be, if I multiply by 2, 6 is to 4 is to 2 as well. If I multiply by 3, 9 is to 6 is to 3 as well. Okay, it can be any number of bricks that are being put by one man, one woman and one child in one day. Okay, this is the ratio which is telling me just the value in terms of ratio. So what else is given here? If the wages of 20 men, 30 women and 36 children is 78, what will be the wages of 15 men, 21 women and 30 children for 18 weeks? Okay, so clearly this is not a straight problem from time and work. This is not related to Monday hours, not related to negative work, something that is not coming as a part of our type. Okay, that's why I'll call this question to be as defensive. Okay, you cannot hit a 6 or a 4 here, and there are calculation here as well, and the options are also close by. So this all tells me that I will have to spend some time on it. I'll have to look this ball really well to be scoring a shot on this ball. Okay, so let's start. How will you do this? So if the efficiency of men, women and child is 3:2:1, if I just multiply this by x, this becomes what? 3x, then this becomes 2x, and this will become x, which means each man puts 3x bricks, woman puts 2x bricks, and child puts x number of bricks in a day. Okay, that is how I call their efficiency. The wages of 20 men, 30 women. So 20 men, 30 women and 36 children, their wages is equals to what? 78. Now what about their efficiency? We know that one man puts in 3x number of bricks in a day. So 20 man will put in 20 into 3x number of bricks in a day. That's what I get it as a first part. 30 women will put in how many bricks? Per woman puts in 2x number of bricks in a day. So 30 women will put in 30 into 2x number of bricks in a day. And let's see the last part. 36 children. Each child puts in x number of bricks in a day. So 36 child will put in 36 into x number of bricks. So these are the total number of bricks that they had put in a wall, and they got 78 rupees for that. Okay, so what is the value of x? This should tell you the value of x. So 20 into 3, 60 x, this becomes 30 into 2 is again 60 x, this becomes 36 into x is, this is 36x is equals to 78. Okay, so add all of them. This becomes what? 60, 60, 120, 120 plus 36, 156. X is equals to 78. So X is equals to what? X is equals to half. That is the first thing that I need to understand it here. X is equals to half. Now what is being asked? That is, let's see that. What will be the wages of 15 men, 21 women and 30 children for 18 weeks? Okay, so let's understand this even better. So we already know this. Let's know the next part about this. So let's keep this here. What is being asked? 15 men. So 15 men, 21 women and 30 children. They are asking the wages for 18 weeks. So let's understand. 15 men are there. Per man is putting how many bricks in one day? 3x. So 15 men will be putting in 15 into 3x number of bricks in a day. Similarly, 21 women will put in how many bricks? 21 into 2x, because each woman puts in 2x number of bricks. And each child will put in how many bricks? X. So 30 children will put in 30 into x number of bricks. What are they paid for? That is a question. This will be the payment per day, if you can understand, because I know this is the number of bricks that are being put in per day. Okay, efficiency is given per day. So this is the number of bricks that they will put in per day, and if I know the value of x, I can know how much they are paid per day. Okay, then I can get it for 18 weeks. So let's start with it then. So let's solve this. 15 into 3, this becomes 45x, plus 21 into 2, this becomes 42x, 30 into x, this becomes 30x. Now if I just add all of them, what will this turn out to be? 45 plus 42, this becomes 47, this is, and this becomes 87x plus 30x. Now let's just add them. This is 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 117x is what you get it here. Okay, but x is equals to what? X is equals to half. So per day, how much 15 men, 21 women and 30 children will earn? 117 into half. Okay, that is what these many people, 15 men, 21 women and 30 children will earn in one day. So let's get to this. This is 2 5s are 10, 1 7, then 2 8s are 16, 58.5. Okay, that's what they will earn per day. What is being asked? 18 weeks. Okay, so per week how much will they earn? This into 7. This is what they will earn per week, because this is per day. 18 weeks, how much will they earn? The entire thing into 18. Right? So this is what they are earning it per day. This is what they are earning it per week, and this is what they are earning it in 18 weeks. So let's just multiply this and reach on to the answer. So what is 18 into 7? Let's just multiply this. 8 7s are 56, 7 1s are 7, 12. Okay, 126 into 58.5. Okay, that's my answer. Or you can write this 58.5 as 117 divided by 2. Okay, why am I doing this? This will get cancelled. 2 1s are 2 6 are 12, 2 3s are 6. Okay, 7 into 3, it will be what? 21. I think this should be the answer. So let's just multiply them to reach on to the exact answer. So 7 into 3 is 21. So I know unit digit from this. I got the answer. If I want to avoid the calculation, 3 1s are 3, 4 5, 3 1s are 3, this 6 7s are 42, 6 1s are 6, 10, 7. So this is 1, this is 7, this is 3, this is 7, 7 3 7 1. As I thought about it, option number A is your answer to this. Okay, so this was clearly a defensive question, because this is not coming from the actual type of time and work. If you had seen our lectures which we have uploaded in the crash course for CMAT 2021 on YouTube, you can find that this is not fitting into any of our types. We had studied many types, but this is something that is different. That's why it is defensive. So you have to play well to get runs on this ball. So we come and play ball number 11, question number 11 for quantitative aptitude. So this question is clearly from time, speed and distance. Okay, let's see what is this question saying here. X and Y are running towards each other from their houses. X can reach Y's houses in 25 minutes, which is half the time taken by Y to run from his house to X's house. Okay, so X takes 25 minutes, so Y will take 50 minutes. Okay, because X takes half the time taken by y. So if x is taking 25 minutes to reach from his house to y's house, y will take 50 minutes to reach from his house to x's house. Okay, that's what I understand. That's what I'll write here as well first, even before I read the entire question. And clearly it looks like a sixer for me. Let's see if it is actually a sixer. So this time taken by x is say 25 minutes, and time taken by y will be what then? 50 minutes, because x takes half the time, okay, to travel from this path to this path, and x travels from here to here. So the path is the same, the distance is same. If the two start to run towards each other at the same time, okay, then how much of time it will be required for y to reach the middle of the house? That is quite simple now. So if x takes 25 minutes to cross this and y takes 50 minutes, which means I can say if this distance is 50 meter, so what is the speed of y? I can say 1 meter per minute. It will cover this 50 meter in 50 minutes. But what will be the speed of x? I'll say 2 meter per minute. Okay, that's why it is covering this distance in 25 minutes. So what is the ratio of the speed of x is to y? 2 is to 1. Okay, 2 meter is to 1 meter. So 2 is to 1 is your ratio of the speed of x and y. So the speed of x is twice the speed of the y. That's why the time taken is half. That's what I understand from here. So what is the question asking? If the two starts at the same time, how much of time will be required by y to reach the middle of the house? So y takes 50 minutes to cross this entire distance. To reach the middle of the house, it will take half of 50, that is nothing but 25 minutes. As I said, this was clearly a sixer here. It was not from the type, but it was quite an easy problem. Answer here is option number B, 25 minutes. So again, this was a ball that needs to be hit for a 6. Okay, you can solve this problem orally. No need to write any values for this. Come on and play ball number 12, question number 12 for quantitative aptitude and data interpretation section. This question is from SICI, simple interest, compound interest. So what is the question saying here now? 25,000 is borrowed at compound interest at the rate of 3% for the first year, 4% for the second year, and 5% for the third year. So principal is given, but the rate of interest is different for 3 years. So what is the formula we know? We know the formula P into 1 plus R upon 100 raised to n, where n is the number of years. Number of years here are 3, but the R is not same. The R is changing. It is 3 for the first year, 4 for the second year, and 5 for the third year. So what will I do here? I'll split this one. So I'll write this P, correct. This is 1 plus R upon 100 for the first year. So this n is equals to 3, right? Which means 1 plus R upon 100 is being multiplied thrice. So 1 plus R upon 100 and into 1 plus R upon 100. I'll write it in this way. Okay, that's how you use the formula. But now here the R is different. For the first year, R is equals to 3. For the second year, R is equals to 4. And for the third year, R is equals to 5. So just substitute this and reach out to your answer. So clearly, this is a sixer to me, because I just have to use the formula and reach on to the answer. And the calculation again doesn't look that complicated. Let's see. The calculation are complicated. Probably it's a 4. But for me, still it's a sixer. 25,000 into 1 plus R. This is equals to 3 upon 100. So let's keep it like that. This is equals to 1 plus 4 upon 100. And this will be equal to 1 plus 5 upon 100. Now just cancel this in such a way so that your calculation becomes easier. So 4 1s are 4 25s are 5 1s are 5 20s are. So what are you left with in the end? This is 25,000 into what? 100 plus 3, this becomes 103 upon 100 into what? 25 plus 1, 26 upon 25 into 20 plus 1, 21 upon 20. That's what you get it here. Now what can you do? Cancel first this 2 0 with this 2 0. So this looks good. Then this 25 1s are 25, 10s are 250, then 10 1s are 10 2s are 20, and 2 1s are 2 13s are 26. So eventually what do I get? I get this 103 into 13, get this, and into what? 21. So into 21. So what will be the answer now? 3 into 3 is 9, 9 into 1 is 1. So option number D looks like an answer. Okay, even before the calculation I just got the answer, because I know the unit digit will be 9. 3 into 3 is 9, 9 into 1. So I looked out for an option which has unit digit of 9. That's it. So without even solving, I know what is the answer is. So now we come and play ball number 13, that is question number 13 in quantitative aptitude section. This is clearly a sixer for me as soon as I look at it, because this is a problem from profit, loss and discount, and it is asking me two successive discount of 8% and 12% is equivalent to one discount of how many percent. And we have seen this in the basics class of profit, loss and discount. We have a formula. What is the formula? X plus y minus x into y divided by 100, the formula for successive discount. And we had understood the logic of this as well, right? If you can remember, we had spent good 30 minutes just to understand successive discount in the profit, loss and discount class. Okay, so go to the basics and you will understand this better. Watch the basics class of CMAT 2021 on our YouTube channel and you will know and understand this concept even better. So now just substitute this. X is equals to 8 and y is equals to 12. Okay, one discount of 8 and another of 12. So x is equals to 8 and y is equals to 12. 8 plus 12, this becomes 20 minus 12 into 8 is 96. 96 divided by 100, 0.96. So if you subtract this, answer is nothing but 19.04 and you got it. Option number B. So two successive discount of 8% and 12% is equivalent to one discount of 19.04%. And without even solving it, I would have known this. How do I know this? See, if you take a plain discount of 8 and 12, it would be 20. But since you are giving 8 and the 12 on that, it has to be less than 20. So there is only one option that is less than 20. That is 19.04. So even without writing the formula, I would have got this. Okay, so this was clearly a full toss which should go out for a 6. If you cannot hit this for a 6, which means there is some problem with your concept. So get your concepts clear with respect to profit, loss and discounts. Watch the basic class. This will surely be a 6er for you. So let's come and play ball number 14, question number 14 from quantitative aptitude section. So what is the question saying here? This is a question from profit, loss and discount again. Let's see, is this a 6 or a 4 or a defensive question, or is this a wicket? So a shopkeeper marks his books by 25% above the cost price. Okay, so if I say the cost price is 100, then the mark price is 125. Due to the slump in the market, his cost price reduces by 5%. Okay, so now the cost price is 95. If I say earlier the cost price was 100, then to boost his sale, he offered a discount of 8%. So on the mark price, the discount of 8% is offered. So 125 is the mark price, 92% of that, okay, will be the selling price now, because 8% is the discount that is being offered. To which the sales goes up by 25%. Okay, so if the earlier sales was X, now the sales is 1.25X. Compute the change in the shopkeeper's profit. So what was the earlier profit? What is the new profit? Is there a change in that? Is there a gain or a loss, or is the profit no change? Okay, so this is like a 4 to me. This is not a 6er. Why is this not a 6er? Because this involves little bit of thinking here. So this is a 4, but this is from my time. This is not something that I had not seen. I had solved such kind of problem in the practice classes on the YouTube. So this looks easy because this is from my type. It is just that it's slightly different. So let's see. That's why we keep it at 4. So let the cost price be equal to 100. That's what I start. Let the cost price of the article is equals to 100. Okay, that's what I start with. And let the number of articles be equal to X. That's what I get it in my first part. Now what? So what is actually the cost price at the start is equals to 100x, because there are 100 is a cost price of article and there are X number of articles. So initially the cost price is 100x. What is the mark price now? 25% above the cost price. So 25% of this 125x becomes my mark price now. What is the selling price now then? You had offered a discount of 8%. So initially, see, what was the profit here? Initially, when nothing happened, there is no slump in the cost price. You're not giving any discount before that. Okay, so the cost price is not reduced. This will be reduced afterwards. Before, what has happened? 100x was the cost price, 125x was the selling price. So the profit here was the 25x. That was the profit here. Now you have to compare with this profit the next profit that is happening after the slump in the cost price and the discount and the increase in the sales, what is actually the profit right now after this three changes. Okay, what are the changes? First is the discount, second is a price slump, and third is an increase in the sales. So how will you solve this now? Price is reduced by 5%. So if the earlier cost price was 100x, now the cost price is 95x. Cost price reduced by 5%. And discount of 8%. So earlier 125x was the mark price. On this you gave a discount of 8%. So take out 8% from this, or you can say what is 92% of this. Okay, that could also be one of the way to find. But I will do it easy way. Just take out 8% from this. Okay, so what is 1% of 125? 1.25. 1.25 into 8 will be what? 10. So 10 is the 8% of 125. So if you take out 10 from this, 115x. Okay, that is my new selling price now, after giving a discount of 8%. So this was a discount of 8% given, which means I take out 8% from this value. So new cost price is this now. I'll put it in green. And the new selling price is this now. Okay, but there is one more thing that has happened. Earlier, the number of articles that were sold were X. Now, the sales has increased by 25%. So now I'll be selling what? Earlier I was selling X. I'll sell X plus 25% of X. 25% of X is nothing but 0.25. So now I'll be selling 1.25X. Earlier I was selling say 10 items. Now I'll be selling 10 plus 25% of 10, which is nothing but 12.5 items. Okay, that's how you have to compute it. So let's see now what is the profit here. Subtract this into this. Now the profit is, this is the cost price, this is the selling price. So this minus this is nothing but now 20x. Okay, 20x is the profit right now. But you are selling not X number of items, you are selling 1.25x. So I'll replace this X by 1.25x. So 20 into, instead of X, I'll write here 1.25x, because you are selling these many items. So this comes out to be what? 25x. And that's what you get it here. Earlier the profit was 25x, now also the profit is 25x. So what do you say about this? There is no change in the profit. There is no change in the profit. Okay, so this was clearly a 4 question. There is no scope much here to make a mistake, because this is coming from what we have learned. Okay, that's why this is a 4 for me and not a defense. So we come and play our next ball. Ball number 15, question number 15 from quantitative aptitude and data interpretation section. This is clearly a question from permutation, combination and probability. And as soon as I read this, I know it's a 6R. How? Because this is a basic question that we had done in the YouTube class of probability, where I had said this is the first type of question where probability is given and we find out probability. So probability is given here. The probability of selection of brother is 1 by 8. So rejection is 7 by 8. Okay, both brother and sister appear for an interview. So we had seen such kind of question, interview based question, and how do you deal with them. So brother selection probability is 1 by 8. So rejection would be 7 by 8. And rejection of sister is 4 by 5. So selection is 1 by 5. What is the probability that one of them gets selected? So how do you solve this? One of them gets selected. So what can happen? Brother is selected and sister is rejected. Okay, or what can happen? Brother is rejected and sister is selected. Okay, that's how we solve it. We had seen this with an example of Kajal, Ajay Devgan and Shah Rukh Khan. We had done one of such problems, that if they get selected or rejected, how do you solve them? What are the various ways in which you can solve them? So that's the same. So brother's selection probability is what? Selection probability, let's put it in blue, it's 1 by 8. So rejection of brother will be what? It will be 7 by 8. 1 minus 1 by 8. Sisters, let's talk about sisters. Selection probability of sister is, rejection is given. Okay, rejection is 4 by 5. So selection will be what? 1 by 5. One of them gets selected. So brother selected, sister rejected. So let's write that brother selected, which means 1 by 8. And sister rejected means 4 by 5. That's what it can happen in the first case. Or you can say what? Brother is rejected. Brother rejected is 7 by 8. So I'll write it 7 by 8 into sister selected. Sister selected is 1 by 5. So just substitute it here and this is your final answer. As I said, this was clearly a sixer, okay? There is no doubt on this at all, just a pure formula based problem. So let's solve. This is 4 upon 40 now plus 7 upon 40. So what does this turns out to be? 7 plus 4 is 11 upon 40. Option number A is your answer. So this was a full toss that should be hit for a 6. Now let us play ball number 16, question number 16 from quantitative aptitude and data interpretation section. So what is the question saying here now? Tom's salary is 150% more than John's salary. John's salary is 80% more than Steve's salary. What is the ratio of Steve's salary to Tom's salary? Okay, very simple question from ratio and clearly a sixer here as well. As soon as you see this, I'm sure all of you will see this as a sixer here now. So let's start by solving this. Tom's salary is 150% more than John. John is 80% more than Steve's salary. So let Steve's salary be equal to 10. Then John's salary is 80% of Steve's salary. So John's salary is 80% of 10, 8. Tom's salary is 150% more than John's salary. So 150% off, okay, not more than. If I am saying more than, I said it wrong. So I'll just repeat this. Steve's salary is say 10. John's salary is 80% of Steve's salary. So it is 80% of 10, that is 8. And Tom's salary is 150% of John's salary. So John's salary is 8, 150% of 8. So 100% of 8 is 8, 50% of 8 is 4, 8 plus 4 that is equal to 12. So Tom's salary is equals to 12. What is being asked? The ratio of Steve's salary, that is 10 upon Tom's salary, that is 12. That is equals to 2 5s are 10, 2 6 are 12, option number D. Okay, clearly a ball on which you should hit a long 6. Okay, one of the easiest questions that you can get in the exam. Let's play ball number 17, question number 17 from quantitative aptitude section. So what is this question saying now? There are 6 teachers, out of them 2 teach physics, 2 teach chemistry and 2 teach mathematics. They have to stand in a row such that physics, chemistry and mathematics teacher are always in a set, which means they are always together. The number of ways in which we can do this. Okay, so clearly a problem from permutation and it's a sixer for me. Okay, in case you are wondering how is this a sixer, because if you know the basics of permutation, how do you make people in a group? The first problem that we have solved in YouTube classes, how do you make 6 boys and 6 girls sit together? Okay, 12 people are sitting on a chair, so you make them as a group. So how can physics, chemistry and mathematics teacher be together? You make them as a group. So let's present this. So say this is P1 physics teacher 1, P2 physics teacher who is second physics teacher, and let's put here C1 chemistry teacher 1, C2 second chemistry teacher, and M1 which is mathematics teacher 1 and second mathematics teacher. Now what is the question asking? You have to arrange them in a row. So 6 people are to be arranged in a row. How many ways this can be done? 6 factorial, right? But that is not what is being asked. They have to stand in a row, okay, but physics, chemistry and mathematics teacher are always in a set. Set means they are always together. So this 2 physics teacher are always together, this 2 chemistry teacher are always together, this 2 maths teacher are always together. So this is one group, this is another group, this is third group. 3 group could be arranged in how many ways? 3 factorial ways. Okay, we had learned this in the basics of permutation. If you don't get this, watch the basics class and you will get this. So 3 groups can be arranged in 3 factorial ways, but this 2 can be arranged among themselves in 2 factorial ways. So a 2 factorial for this. This 2 chemistry teacher can arrange among themselves, so 2 factorial for that. And this 2 maths teacher could arrange among themselves, so 2 factorial for that. And this is my final answer here. So this 3 factorial is 6 into 2 into 2 into 2, 8. 6 into 8 is nothing but 48. And that's your answer, option number B. Okay, and that's why it's a sixer, because we had done much more difficult problem than this. 6 boys and 6 girls are to be arranged in a row. In how many ways this can be done? That all the boys are always together. Okay, how do you solve that? Just to give an idea, 6 boys and 6 girls. All the boys are always together, so you tie them together. Now this is one group along with 6 girls. So 6 girls and one group could be arranged in 7 factorial ways. And these 6 boys could arrange among themselves in 6 factorial ways. So 6 boys and 6 girls can be arranged in a row such that all the boys are always together is 7 factorial into 6 factorial. Okay, the first problem of permutation that we had done in basics class. Okay, this is straight from there. That's why it's a sixer, because it's a very simple problem. And play ball number 18, question number 18 in quantitative aptitude section. And this question is from the chapter of averages. Okay, let's see what is the question saying. So the question is saying that 5 years ago the average age of ABCD was 45 years. Okay, so currently the average age would be 50. By including X in the present lot, their present average age changes to 49 years. So their average age reduced by 1. What is the present age of X? This is clearly a sixer. The easiest question that I can get on average would be this. Okay, there are two ways that I can solve this. First, I'll tell you the long method, then I'll tell you the shortcut. I'll get the answer for this in like 10 to 15 seconds by the shortcut. But let us first know the original method. So the present age of A plus B plus C plus D is what? 200. Okay, because their present average is 50. 5 years ago it was 45. The present average is 50. 50 into 4. Sum of the age of A plus B plus C plus D is 200. Now including X, what has happened now? X is being included. A plus B plus C plus D plus E, or your X. Okay, X is included. So the average becomes 49. Average age of 5 people is 49. So what is the sum of age of 5 people? 49 into 5. Okay, that is nothing but, so 45, 245. So 245 is the age. Now this is quite simple. Subtract this from this. This is ABCD. Subtract this from this. A plus B plus C plus D plus X minus this. 245 minus 200. You will get X is equals to 45, and that's your answer. What is the present age of X? 45. Okay, so that's why that's a sixer. You can't get a problem simpler than this. Okay, I could have solved this just by looking at them as well. So I know the average was 50. It reduced to 49. Right, which means if I can say the sum of ages 200, I can say each one of them has an age of 50. Now this 50 became 49 for each one of them, as the average became 49 here. So what has happened? This X has taken 1 from all of them. So if X came with the age of 45, it took 1 from this, 1 from here, 1 from here, 1 from here. So it took 45 plus 4, it took 49, such that all of them became 49. So just by observation also, I would have told that X came with the age of 45. Okay, then only the average will reduce from 50 to 49. Okay, clearly a sixer. Let's play ball number 19, question number 19 from quantitative aptitude section. So what is the question saying now? This is from geometry, and clearly you can see the question is a sixer here, because I am being told here which of the following sets of number can be used as a length of the sides of a triangle. And what do you know about a triangle? If the three sides of the triangle are A, B and C, sum of the two sides has to be always greater than the third side. Okay, sum of any two sides, say A plus C has to be greater than B, and similarly say A plus B is over, A plus C is over, C plus B has to be greater than A. Sum of the two sides will always be greater than the third side. That is a property of a triangle. That's how you make a triangle. Okay, if sum of two sides is equal to third side, triangle will not be formed. If the sum of the two sides is less than the third side, triangle will not be formed. So that is what you will have to check. Check it here. 5 plus 7, sum of the two sides 12 is equal to the third side. Wrong. This cannot form a triangle. Check it here. 9 plus 7, this is 16. Sum of the two sides is less than the third side. Okay, this is 17, so gone. Check this here. 4 plus 2 is 6. Sum of the two sides is less than the third side, so gone. So this has to be the answer. Check. Sum of the two sides is always greater than the third side. So 5 plus 7, 12 greater than 9. 9 plus 7, 16 greater than 5. Similarly 9 plus 5, 14 greater than 7. So this satisfies this. Clearly a full toss which should be hit for a 6. Let's play now ball number 20, solving question number 20 in quantitative aptitude section. So this question is from permutation, and is it again a sixer for me? So as soon as I read this, I know it's a sixer, because what is the question asking me? In how many different ways can the letters of the word extra be arranged so that the vowels are never together? So how do you solve such question? Solve it when the vowels are together. Total number of ways minus when the vowels are together will give me not together. So total minus, you can say vowels together, will give me vowels not together. Okay, that is what my question is asking me. So vowels not together is what I'll get it here. So let's start with that total number of ways. In how many ways can you arrange this letters E, X, T, R, A? So how many different words can you form by using the alphabets of the word extra? 5 factorial. Okay, first class of permutation we have learned. 5 factorial is what? 120. So you can form 120 different words by using the alphabets of the word extra. Okay, so you can say one of the word is X, E, T, R, A. One of the word is say T, R, A, E, X, anything. So such like that, not meaningful word, but words you can form are 120 by using the alphabets of the word extra. What is the question asking? In how many ways can the letters be arranged so that the vowels are never together? So I am telling total number of ways minus when the vowels are together will give me the total number of ways in which I can form a word in which the vowels are not together. So how do you find this out? Vowels are together, make them together. Okay, we had learned this in basics of permutation. Whenever you want something to be together, tie them together. So I tie this two together, which is say, let me just cut this, which is say you are E and then A. I have two vowels here, so let's write it E, X, T, R, A. I want vowels to be together, so I'll tie this E and then A. They have to be together always. Rest of them will be now what? E and then A is X, T, R. Now see how many alphabets are here? 1, 2, 3 and 1 group. So 4 could be arranged in 4 factorial ways. So these are the number of ways in which the vowels can be together, but they can arrange among themselves, right? In 2 factorial ways. So 4 factorial into 2 factorial. Someone who is not getting this, please go on and watch the basics of permutation. This is the first sum that we are solving in. Okay, remember the example, all boys not together. So total number of ways minus when boys are together will give me all boys not together. That's what I'm doing. So total minus when vowels are together, vowels not together. So this is now, what is the answer? 4 factorial is 24 into 2, 48. So 48 number of ways when vowels are together. So this minus this, what is the answer now? This will be 52, 62, 72, option number D. Okay, this was clearly a sixer for me because I don't have to think here at all. I know how to solve it. I know a method. The only thing I can make here is a silly mistake. Okay, so this is a full toss which you should hit for a 6. Let's come on and face ball number 21, question number 21 in quantitative aptitude section. So what is the question saying here? Let's see if there's a 4 or a 6, or will I have to be defensive here. A city has an average demand of water as 33,000 liters. Okay, what is average demand? Average means per day. Okay, so that is a language that is being used here. Per day, the demand of water, average demand is 33,000 liters, which lasts for 50 days. So this only tells me, even before I read the entire question, city consumes 33,000 liters of water per day. So in 50 days it will consume this much of water. So this is the capacity required for the city. Okay, that is what is being told here. What next part? Let's see. We'll calculate this, what is actually the capacity required for the city. And then it is being said that, but if some people enter the city, then the demand increases to 37,000 liters per day. Okay, because we are again talking about average, for which the supply will last for 35 days. Okay, so if people enter, you will be consuming 37,000 liters of water per day, and you will be consuming this for 35 days. So what is being asked here? Given an estimation of how much minimum water should be used daily so that it could last for 50 days. Correct. Now see, this is something that is, this capacity is required to be consumed by the city. This is what city has consumed till now. Okay, so let's calculate. This is something that is required for the city. So 33 into 15 is what? 165. Okay, 165 and then 4 zeros here. 1, 2, 3 and then 4. 3 from here, 1 from here. Now this is what? 35 into 37. 35 square is what? 1225. Okay, plus 35 into 2, 70. That is nothing but 35 into 37. So this is 5. 7 plus 2, 9. 1295. 1295. 0, 0, 0. So as you can understand this, this minus this is what? This minus this, if you subtract this is what is being left. Now divide this by 15 because you had used the water for 35 days. 15 more days you will use this much amount of remaining water because this is the capacity. So per day, how much? Given an estimation of how much minimum water should be consumed on daily basis so that it could last for 50 days. So that is your answer now. Just find it out. 15 2s are 30 and then you get is 5 15 3s are 45, 23, then 45, then it is what then 10 100 15 what 6 are. Yes, so if you solve this, I am thinking that it will be 1 by 15 and I should get this B as an answer here. Okay, so what do you call this question to be as? I will call this to be as 4 because it is difficult to understand the language of this. Okay, it is not a straight question which you know. So you need to get that. Okay, average demand means per day the city consumes this. The city consumes it for 50 days, which means this is the capacity requirement for the city. Now some people enter the city because of which per day they are consuming this. They consumed it for 35 days. So this much amount of water they already consumed it. So this minus this is this amount of water that is remaining to be consumed. And how many days it has to last? 15 more days because you had consumed it for 35 days, so 15 more days. So per day how much will you consume? This much. If you consume this much per day minimum water so that it will last for 50 days because you had already used it for 35 days. So understanding the problem was a little difficult here, but once you understand it was very easy. That's why it's a 4 and we are not being defensive here because it's understanding. Once you get this, calculation are also not that very complicated. These are the only two options you have to think for and you will reach the answer. Let's now face the last few balls of quantitative aptitude section. So question number 22 to 25, balls number 22 to 25. Okay, let's see if we can hit a 6 or a 4 or will we be defensive here. So this is a question on data interpretation. As the section says, quantitative aptitude, we solve problem on quants. Now this is DI. What is the chart talking about? The number of boys and girls in 100, so this data is in 100, in 6 different years, okay, 2014 to 2019, in 5 different schools. So there are 5 different schools, A, B, C, D, E. If I ask you the number of girls in class C in the year 2017, so class C 2017, number of girls, it would be 520. That's how you read the chart. So clearly it's a 6er for me. I don't have to think of anything else here now. Okay, you know why? Because the data and the numbers here are very simple. My calculation will be very easy. So I will attempt this. This is a 6er for me. So let's take the first question. What is the approximate percentage decrease in the number of boys in school D in 2017 as compared to the previous year? Okay, the data is missing here, as compared to the previous year. So let's write it here now. 2017 is the year. Previous year would be 2016. Class D number of boys. So let's check it. Class D number of boys. Number of boys 640 were there in 16 and 530 they become. Okay, so they asked me the percentage decrease. 640 became 530. What is a decrease here? Decrease here is 70 plus 40, 110. 110 is decreased over what? We had studied a lot in this percentage. Percentage increase, percentage decrease, positive growth, negative growth. Remember the story of Patanjali? Okay, if someone doesn't know what is percentage increase and decrease, go to our YouTube channel and watch CMAT course. Okay, we had uploaded the video, basics video of all the topics, and that is where you will find this. So 110 is decreased over 640. This is nothing but 1s are approximately 6 are 1 by 6, 16.66, 17% approximately is my answer to that. So as I said, this entire set is a 6R. Okay, it's quite a simple problem here. Let's take the next one here. 23rd. The number of girls in the school B in the year 2018. Okay, let's come here. Number of girls in the school B in the year 2018. Okay, this is 590. 590. What is being asked now? So this is 590. Is approximately what percent of the total number of students in 2015? So let's check. Total number of students in 2015 are how many? So this is 2015. Total number of students. Let's calculate. 660 plus 420 plus 490 plus 220 plus 690 plus 330 plus 440 plus 230 plus 550 plus 360. And I'm sure you can find the answer for this now. Whatever you answer get from this will be the total number of students in 2015. 590 is what number of that, and that will give you the answer for this as well. Okay, so clearly again this is a sixer. I'm not solving this because I'm sure you will be able to get to the answer of this. Let's come on to the next question. What is the average number of girls in school A if all the years are taken together? So average number of girls in school A. Let's come here. In school A, average number of girls. So you will add all of them. Okay, and divide this by how many years? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So whatever is the addition that you get, divided by 6. So 360 plus 420 plus 690 plus 960 plus 129, 1290. Okay, this is multiplied by 100 plus 1440. Add all of them, divide this by 6, and that should give you the answer for average number of girls in school A taken all the years together. Okay, again this is a sixer, quite a simple problem. So let's play the last ball for this section. Question number 25 for quantitative aptitude section, which is coming from our DI, the set we are solving. What is the ratio of number of boys in school C? So check, number of boys in school C is given to be what here? School C, number of boys, I think 2018 was the year, so check it, this 870. So number of boys are 870 here, and the number of girls, what are they asking? Number of boys in school C to the number of girls in school A in 2018. Number of girls in school A in 2018 are what? 1290. So 870 upon 1290. Okay, boys in school C 2018, girls in school A 2018. Okay, that is 870 upon 1290. And if you solve this, what will you get? 870 upon this, you will get the answer of 29:41. Okay, just solve this. 870 upon 1290. Okay, just cancel this now. So 9, 10, 11, 12, 7, 7, 14, 15, it will go by 3. So 3 2s are 6, 3 9s are 27, 3 4s are 12, 3 this is 3 3s are 9. Okay, 29:43. Okay, just be cautious here. I was too early to jump to the answer. This is what I get, 29:43.